The snow was falling soft as breath, each flake turning the world white and hushed, and down the main street of Dry Creek a lone woman walked with her head bowed. Mae Harper's shawl was thin, her boots cracked at the soles, and every step carried not just her weary body but the weight of words spoken behind closed doors. "She's no good. Ruined. Best she keep walking out of town." Those whispers clung to her like burrs as if the snow itself bore their scorn. I remember her face that day, pale as bone, her lips chapped, her eyes too tired to fight the wind. She looked less like a woman than a ghost mistaken for flesh. She pushed through the door of Fletcher's general store, the bell above giving a thin, reluctant ring. Inside smelled of tobacco and kerosene. The shelves sagged with flour sacks, tins of beans, bolts of cloth. Mae's hands trembled as she reached for bread, but she froze when Tom Fletcher's shadow fell over her. His mustache twitched in a humorless smile and he shook his head. "You got coin, Mae?" Her voice caught, too soft, and when she whispered no, he set the loaf back on the shelf. A mother near the stove pulled her child close, muttering that shame was catching. The heat of the stove did not reach Mae, she felt only the chill of their stares. Her thoughts flickered, against her will, to the life she had lost. A husband taken by fever, a family who turned her away after whispers of mistakes they would never forgive. She had begged for mercy before and mercy had never come. By the time she stepped out of that store empty-handed, the snow was thickening, biting at her skin, each gust of wind urging her farther away from warmth. She walked toward the tree line where the town's voices could not reach, but the cold did not show kindness either. Far up the road, another figure moved among the drifts. Jonah McGraw, the mountain man, was known in Dry Creek as a man who needed no one and offered nothing. He came rarely to town, leading his sled drawn by a pair of lean mules, supplies lashed tight beneath canvas. His shoulders were broad as pine logs, his coat patched with bare hide, his beard heavy with frost. People stepped aside when he entered the store, half in respect, half in unease. Rumors followed him like ravens. His wife gone in childbirth, his cabin high up where storms buried men alive, a baby daughter who might not last the winter. Jonah said little and no one dared press. Mae saw him once, from the corner of her eye, his presence filling the room like a storm contained in a man's body. She thought then how strange it was, a man with such silence in him, carrying the weight of a child. She could not imagine the touch of his hand against something so small and tender. She turned her gaze away quickly, for she felt she did not belong even in the air he breathed. That night, the wind rose sharp as knives. Mae pressed on through the trees, her body hollow from hunger, her mind heavy with despair. The snow blinded her, and her feet tangled in roots hidden beneath the white. She stumbled once, then again, and finally sank to her knees. For a moment she thought she might welcome the cold, let it swallow her whole, for it seemed the only place left that wanted her. She lay down, the flakes drifting over her, and her eyes fluttered shut. The crunch of boots in snow came faint, then nearer. A shadow bent over her, rough hands lifting her like a bundle of sticks. Jonah McGraw's voice, low and steady, muttered, "Town's problem, not mine." Yet he did not lay her down again. Something in her frailty, in the way her lashes were frosted shut, stilled his leaving. He set her in his sled, tucking the canvas tighter around her, and led the mules toward the mountains. When Mae opened her eyes, it was to the glow of firelight, pine smoke thick in the air, and the faint cry of a baby. The cabin walls were hewn logs, close and warm compared to the storm still raging outside. Jonah crouched by the hearth, feeding split wood into the blaze. He looked up, his eyes pale gray, unreadable, and handed her a tin cup of water. "Storm'll pass," he said gruffly. "You'll stay till then." His words were not kindness, but neither were they rejection. From the corner, a baby's wail grew sharper. Jonah rose, moving with a stiffness that betrayed his uncertainty, and lifted the child from a cradle. The infant was small, cheeks red from crying, fists flailing. Jonah's hands were strong, made for rifles and axes, not for the fragile weight of his daughter. Mae, still weak, felt her body stir without thought. She reached, and he hesitated, then allowed her to take the child. The baby quieted almost at once, pressing her face into Mae's shoulder. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Jonah stood, arms empty, staring at this woman the town had cast aside, and the baby, his rose, resting calm against her chest. Mae looked down at the child, her lips parting in wonder, and for the first time in many months she did not feel like a burden. She felt like someone needed. The storm did not let up for days. Snow pressed heavy against the cabin walls, and the wind howled like wolves across the ridge. Inside, the world grew small. Firelight licking the logs, the creak of timbers, the steady crack of Jonah's axe as he split what he could salvage from the shed. Mae moved quietly as though afraid the spell might break if she claimed too much space. Yet each small act she offered, the way she mended a torn shirt with needle and thread, the way she stirred the pot over the fire so it would not scorch, left its mark upon the silence. Rose had taken to her. The baby stilled when Mae lifted her, soft humming falling from her lips like snowflakes. Jonah would glance from his work, his rough hands pausing over the haft of a tool, and listen to the tune. He never asked what song it was. He only felt, though he could not admit it, that the sound stitched warmth into places long cold inside him. When the weather broke for a day, Jonah readied his sled. "Supplies are low," he said. Mae turned her face away, whispering that he must not speak her name in town. "They'll think worse of me than they already do." Jonah studied her, his jaw tight, but he gave no answer. He set out down the ridge. In Dry Creek, whispers started before he'd even entered the store. A woman laughed harshly. "He's keeping her up there." Another voice cut in. "A ruined woman raising a child? That little one won't stand a chance." Jonah slammed his payment on the counter, the sound sharp as a gunshot. "What my child grows up seeing is none of your concern," he said, voice low but edged like steel. The room fell silent. He gathered his goods and left, leaving the rumor-mongers stunned. Later, Mae overheard him mention the exchange. Her eyes filled before she could stop them. She turned away, ashamed of the wetness on her cheeks, but Jonah had seen. He said nothing, only set another log on the fire, the gesture as close to comfort as he knew how to give. The days deepened into something neither of them expected. Mae rose before Jonah to prepare coffee, though it was bitter and thin. He noticed how she cut her portion smaller so Rose would have more. When Jonah came in from chopping, he found her crouched on the floor, Rose giggling at a bundle of sticks Mae had tied with ribbon to make a toy. His rifle stood in the corner, forgotten, because in this small world danger seemed far away. He began to leave it there, not out of neglect but out of trust. Then came the second storm, crueler than the first. It roared across the ridge with the sound of 1,000 drums, snow piling higher, firewood dwindling to scraps. Jonah's steady hands grew restless. He paced, checking and rechecking the latch, feeding the fire with a desperation he tried to hide. That night Rose woke screaming. Her skin was hot with fever, her small body thrashing in the cradle. Jonah's face went pale. He lifted her awkwardly, his voice raw. She won't stop, I don't know what to do." The man who split logs with one stroke of his axe now trembled as if made of glass. Mae reached for the child without hesitation. Rose melted into her arms as though she had been waiting. Mae pressed her lips to the baby's damp forehead, rocking gently. She hummed again, that same soft hymn, voice unsteady but full of tenderness. She whispered old prayers half forgotten, her cheek resting against the down of Rose's hair. Slowly the baby's cries eased to whimpers, then to quiet, her breath hitching in sleep. Jonah sank to his knees before them. Firelight caught in his eyes, storm booming outside, and the sight seemed to undo him. His voice broke, rough and halting. "They call you a burden. To me you're the one thing keeping us alive." He bowed his head, not to beg but in reverence, as though he finally understood what had been given into his keeping. The storm raged until dawn, but within the cabin peace held. When sunlight finally broke through, the snow glittered like glass. Icicles shone from the eaves and the air was sharp, clean, new. Mae stood at the doorway, Rose bundled against her chest, the warmth of her small heartbeat pressing into her own. Jonah came beside her, shoulders brushing hers. No words passed between them. They did not need them. It was enough that the world was wide and cold, but within their walls, there was warmth waiting to be shared. And I tell you this as one who has seen lives cast aside by gossip and pride. The world may call a soul useless, may brand them a burden unfit for grace. But I saw a woman cradle a child, and in that simple act, a man found steadiness and a child found peace. Love often comes not as thunder, but as a hand reaching through the dark. And what the world discards, love redeems.